Great, thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock on Wednesday, August 2nd. We will call to order the special meeting of the Meridian Library Board of Trustees. Thanks. Jeff, can you hear me okay?
Yep, can you hear me?
Great. Yep, no problem. All right, so our purpose here tonight is the next step in our budget process. We will just have a discussion of the amended FY23 and proposed FY24 budgets. And if all looks in order, we'll approve those budgets for publication. Following that, the next step is the public hearing, which will happen at our regularly scheduled August board meeting. So we will begin with item 1 on our agenda, discussion of the amended 23 and proposed 24 budgets. Nick?
All right, thank you. I'm going to just throw it onto the screen so that we can see what's in front of us as well. Jeff, it should be in your in the folder if you want to pull it up, but I'll have it on the screen as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. So we shared this with you all a couple of weeks ago at the July meeting. There have been a few adjustments, and those were done with the final L2s that we got from Ada County yesterday afternoon. And so we were making changes up until this afternoon to get everything squared away with final adjustments. Emma also was able to reconcile budgets through June, and we have a lot of our expenditures accounted for so that we can have better projections. And we reworked some of the projections to make sure that we properly accounted for any changes that had happened or are planned to happen before the end of the fiscal year, primarily with personnel, making sure that we properly accounted for the Orchard Park staff for how we projected out. We hadn't included all of the staff because it was skewed based on how long it was before we had a full Orchard Park staff. And so we had to do a modification of our build out there. The biggest change that you're going to see is the line before the total expenditures. And that is the general fund six-month reserve increase. We had that included in the repair and replacement fund when we showed it to you in July. However, in looking at how much operating cash we need to have in our general fund, which is about a 6-month reserve, we need to increase that amount so that we are within a good accounting practice of having the proper funding on hand for that 6-month period. When we looked at the trends over time, it had been a flat rate for 3 years, had bumped up, and then been a flat rate for 3 years. And so we're at the end of another 3 years essentially. And looking at it, we want to stay within a good range, and we weren't there if we had kept it at the lower amount. And so that's the biggest changes that we had. And then just some adjustments to account for the pieces in the amended. The proposed budget is pretty much the same from what you had seen last year. If you look at the total revenue from last year to this year, or from our current year, fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24, we're currently budgeting about the same revenue. And the reasoning for that $17,000 difference and not something larger is the unknown of the non-tax revenue and our conservative approach to not over guess essentially how much would come in on the non-tax revenue, because that is a variable rate versus the property and tax. And so that's where you see some of that. We will be doing a separate motion to collect the foregone. We had to do this outside of the budget meeting last year. And so this year we're making sure that we properly do that at the same time to pass the resolution to take the foregone. At the bottom of your sheet, you'll see information about the foregone. There's two different kinds. One is for capital and one is for operational. And we have accounted for those on the bottom to show what we're going to be requesting, or what we're requesting for foregone, and how it will be used and properly accounted for in the budget. And so that is largely where we're at. Happy to answer questions that you may have. One thing I will say, the other adjustments that we made for the amended budget were based on feedback that you all gave us in July, particularly in relationship to capital expenditures in this fiscal year. And so that change was accounted for in this proposed amended budget as well, to purchase some of those large capital items now versus holding off to do them later. So we will do our best to get those in before the end of the fiscal year.
Great. Thank you, Nick. All right. So I'm very pleased with the increase in the 6-month reserve. I think with an additional branch, very prudent to make that, as we know, collect our property tax in January and June. So we do need to have that funding available to float our operations in the lead up to January. So I'm happy to see that adjustment. Additional questions or comments from the trustees?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Nick, your comment about the foregone, that was a reference to making sure that the foregone discussion is part of the August meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
We have to notice that we will have that, and as part of Idaho code, it can be it can coincide with the annual budget hearing, and so we're just making sure that we properly call attention to it here, and then we will act on it separately. Even though it is integrated into the budget, the act of collecting the foregone has to be its own resolution.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Other questions, comments from the trustees? All right, seeing none, we will move forward then to item number 2 on our agenda, which is to approve the amended FY23 and proposed 24 budgets for publication. We see on the screen and in front of us here on the table the legal notice. So this is what it will look like when it is published for the public to review in advance of that public hearing at our regular August meeting. And as Nick noted, the explanation on the foregone is included in this legal notice document. Any questions, or I would entertain a motion to approve the FY23 and proposed 24 budgets for publication.
I move that we approve the amended FY23 and proposed FY24 budgets for publication.
Thank you, Laura.
I will second that.
Thank you, Jeff. Further comment? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the end of our business this evening. It is 7:09 and we are adjourned. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, everybody.
It'd be longer to get to the right meeting.
It's gonna like what